Hello, I'm Wendy Wilson, and I'd like to welcome you to a special edition of Realizing Potential. We are acknowledging, and it's a national recognition Ethics Awareness Week, and it's something that we take very seriously throughout the USG and certainly here at Albany State University. And so I thought it only fitting to convene our resident experts here. One is our legal counsel here at Albany State University. The other is our Chief Human Resources Officer, and they stay very committed in terms of educating, enlightening, and even holding our campus community accountable as it relates to ethics and the associated behaviors and actions. And so I have with me today our legal counsel, Mr. Joel Wright, and our Chief Human Resources Officer, Mrs. Ola Terrell-Jordan. Thank you both for joining me today. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having us.
Good. And so I'll begin with our most recent addition to our Albany State University community and family, or Ramley as we are affectionately known. She's really no stranger to Albany State University, and she will share a little bit as to how she is quite familiar with this fine institution. Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Ola Terrell-Jordan. I am the Chief Human Resources Officer here, as you stated. I am a 3-time graduate of the unsinkable Albany State University. I started with a bachelor's in criminal justice, proceeded to a master's in criminal justice, and finished with a master's in public administration with a concentration of human resources. I have about a little over 18 years working in the human resources profession, mostly in local government, and found the opportunity to come home to my university to join as the HR officer here. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you for joining me today. And thank you for returning to Albany State University in the capacity of our Chief Human Resources Officer. So my other colleague, equally as brilliant, Mr. Joel Wright, serves as our legal counsel. Joel, if you could share with the viewers a little bit about your educational background. You've been with Albany State a little bit longer. Tell us a little bit about what led up to what you currently do so well for us today.
Sure. Well, thank you again for having me. My name is Joel Wright. I'm the Chief Legal Affairs Officer. That's my long title. Prior to joining the Ramley, I was at another USG institution where I served as the Director of Equal Opportunity and Title IX. In that area, I kind of was specialized in protected class issues. Prior to that, I was in private practice and practiced the last couple of years of my Marine Corps career as a judge advocate. So I've spent about 13 years in the Marine Corps. I received my bachelor's degree from Georgia Southern University in political science, and then went on to get my Juris Doctor law degree from Michigan State University. So this opportunity to join the Albany State family just was a tremendous opportunity for me personally, but one that was really, there goes my, lost my train of thought there.
That's
but
okay.
It was one that was really enticing for me, because you really had the opportunity to make a difference in the community, in the student body. And so I just loved that ability to have a personal touch.
Yeah, it is a great blend and marriage, if you will. And I had forgotten about that, our Michigan connection. I'm originally from Detroit. I forgot you'd spent some time in that area at Michigan State. Again, we're certainly have greatly benefited from your vast body of knowledge and experience, and how you've applied that to Albany State University. As we started off this conversation, our whole focus is ethics. the training, the application, the accountability. The USG, like many other entities throughout the country, is recognizing it throughout a week that we have here, and that's actually we're pre-taping this, so it'll air. This will air. I think the second or third week of November is when we're officially recognizing it officially. But of course, we do it every day. Joel, in your based upon your experience and what you do on a daily basis, if you could define ethics and the awareness of it and how you infuse it in your daily practices and go about just educating our campus community about the topic itself.
Well, ethics, whether it's your personal ethics or organizational ethics, it influences everything you do during the day. Every decision you make, every piece of work product that you put out there. If we look at the core values of our institution or the Board of Regents' core values, ethics plays a part in all of that. So you really can't separate ethics from your day-to-day work. And so I think you keyed in to it, and that question is, the training and education and how do we keep our ethical obligations at the forefront of our mind. And we do things like this. We have conversations. Certainly, the USG system-wide has Ethics Awareness Month, but we try to make sure that we recognize our ethical responsibilities throughout the day and throughout every month in the decisions that we make. And that's part of what my role is here at the institution, and just making sure that as people seek counsel from my office, we're keeping in mind all of those obligations that we have, whether it's policies in place, state law, federal law, and kind of the key to doing that is having that conversation and having that conversation on the front end so that we're not experiencing any issues kind of after the fact.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. You reminded me in that response, I lived in Okinawa, Japan for about 2.5, almost 3 years. And the television station that was dedicated to the military personnel would always, just create educational opportunities. One of the things that I was always struck by, and you kind of alluded to this, it is really, there is a blend and a marriage about the decisions that we make on a daily basis. And so it's not just something that you just kind of cherry pick or go to as you deem fit or as needed. It really is in our daily and ongoing practices as individuals personally as well. And I was reminded of one of the commercials, if you will, or promotional pieces that they would always discuss that during the back to school season, that there would be an uptick in a loss of office supplies. They would go on the decline. And so what they were sharing with everyone is that one notebook, those 5 notebooks, that box of pens, as we build our children's book bags or arsenal supplies, they would also see that correlation with the supplies diminishing in the office. And those small acts in our mind, we might, they missed that box of pens. But that then directly aligns with our ethical behaviors and our decisions and how that can, snowball into other actions and deeds.
And that's something that I've taken away from my time in the Marine Corps is, it's probably easier to make the correct ethical decision when there's this big project or this, something that's out front and everybody's got eyes on you're more likely to try to make all of the correct decisions. But it's in those little day-to-day moments where I'm in my office and the door is closed or nobody's going to know. That's where, the core values here at ASU of excellence, integrity, accountability, all of those things come into play. And so, taking the time to reiterate those, to refamiliarize ourselves with them is important because, that sometimes those decisions can start the slow fade that really have an impact, not only on the organization, but, you personally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ola, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, but we're going to actually take a break and then come back to make sure that we have enough time to really delve into this discussion.
He's got a lot of important stuff to say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll be right back and hear from Ola, our Chief Human Resources Officer, to hear her perspective and thoughts and how she engages our campus community in terms of educating and then holding them accountable as it relates to ethical behavior. We'll be right back.
Telling the girls about my Alzheimer's diagnosis was really hard.
Early detection gave us time to adapt together.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
Thank you for joining us again. We're having a really great discussion about what we are acknowledging as Ethics Awareness Week here at Albany State University, focusing on the small and the great. And we've been just discussing actually how they really just align in terms of our personal decisions and how that applies to what we actually do in the workplace. And so I was going to ask Ola, our Chief Human Resources Officer, to actually weigh in as it relates to her area. So Ola, if you could just share your knowledge in terms of how you, or your thoughts rather, I think that's better, your thoughts on how you educate our campus community about the importance of ethics, the application, and then the accountability piece.
Great. So it all starts from the foundational aspect of you as the person. How, in a leadership position, how are you demonstrating ethics on a daily basis? So that is where training initially starts, is when we first orientate that new hire coming into the organization. You're the first person that they see, you meaning human resources. It starts there. It starts at the foundational, from the inception, from the beginning. And so how we carry ourselves throughout our day-to-day way of work, how even we carry ourselves in our outside of work life, demonstrates our ethics as a whole. So I can't go out here and be, doing unethical things outside of work and then come to you as this human resources person giving you advice on being ethical. So it starts at the very beginning, at the first introduction. Once a person is orientated and we would release them to the wild of their work life here, it's continuous training. It's showing them the importance of it by doing. We love to tell you what the policies are, but I can't tell you what the policy is if I'm not following it myself. So you're leading by example at all times. Whether someone is looking, whether someone isn't looking, who you are makes up what the ethics you're putting out to campus-wide to be. So we are dealing with faculty, we're dealing with staff, we're even dealing with students because we have student workers, and we also walk past students. We are also, moving all around the campus. And as I stated, it starts with the inception. Who you are is what makes up your ethic background.
Sure. And you both in your roles see it from all different stakeholders or our kind of constituent base, if you will. So that, as you said, the faculty, staff, and the students. And oftentimes when you hear ethics in the post-secondary environment, education environment, one would go to just automatically to the students and the whole academic integrity piece and plagiarism. And it really is so much broader than that. When you said, Ola, that the leader and how we have to actually demonstrate, because people are always watching us, and we absolutely have to set the example. I was thinking in my head, I said, well, gosh, is it just, it seems like it's exploded in terms of all of the areas that we need to monitor and consider in terms of our ethical practices going on or occurring on a daily basis. Will you all share in terms of your opinion or your experiences if that explosion has occurred as it relates to the advancements in technology? Is it pretty consistent? Do you see any differences? And I guess the question that I'm asking both of you all, has your workload increased as a result of technology? Just the demands on all of those different stakeholders that I mentioned earlier, students, faculty, and staff.
So I'll go first. And sure. I wouldn't necessarily say increase. It's just a different lens. Okay. And so now, of course, as you know, with the explosion, there is also social media. And so the expectations of you here versus the expectations of you on social media. What is one of the hardest things to understand is that there is also freedom of speech. And we have limitations on what we can hold accountable to and what we can't. So I would never want to violate someone's rights, and Joel definitely can speak more on this, want to violate someone of what I may not view as the right thing to do versus what you can do. But going back to ethics it shows in everyone who you are. So if you're holding me to this standard here, you have to be held to that standard everywhere. So whether it's through social media, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's at your desk, we're all leaders, whether you're a chief legal officer, a chief human resources officer, chief of staff, whether you're, at the front line, we're all leaders because we're brought here to perform a specific duty. And mainly that is the support of our students. Mm-hmm. So social media has contributed to some of our workload, but I wouldn't say it has increased. It's just a different lens.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Joel, your thoughts on that?
I would echo that sentiment. I don't think that there are any more struggles with ethical decisions now than there were 10, 15, 20 years ago. They may be different. And so as we continue to create new technology, how we apply those same ethical standards to this new environment, that creates just some new and creative thought processes that maybe we have to adapt new and creative policies to make sure that, that we are following all the guidelines that are in place or state or federal laws that affect that area. But I don't, again, I don't think it's any different as far as the decision making. They're just different decisions that are being made today than in the past. But that does require us to continually stay abreast of the latest, ethical education policies. Make sure that we're being mindful of our practices to make sure that we aren't doing this same process or this same procedure because that's the way it's always been done. So it was okay 15 years ago means it's still okay now. You have to, continually be analyzing and thinking through what you're doing, what process, why you're doing this, and are there any new considerations that, maybe we didn't have to think about in the past.
Yeah. Thank you both for sharing that. So my mind was spinning, and that's why we have experts like yourself on our team for the whole checks and balances piece to make sure that we are consistent in terms of the dispensation. If there is a need to hold somebody accountable for some decisions that they've made, does that align with the policies that we have in place? That's just important. Are we doing that across the board? Ola, when you mentioned the whole social media piece, that's where my mind started racing. We are in the business of developing young minds, and of course, that frontal lobe for them is not always developed as it should. It takes a little longer for some, and they keep pushing moving the goalposts. So now I'm hearing it's like 25, 27, and I'm like no, they've got to mature faster than that. But we're dealing also with a generation where all they've known is, these devices. So they've just, they've always known social media. There are cameras everywhere, which me in my mind, in my 56 years, I'm thinking that, hey guys, this is heightened in terms of who is watching you, which would to me serve as a greater catalyst for you to just make better and wiser decisions that align in that whole ethics space. That is not always the case, though. I'm still blown away at stuff that is posted online, where then they are then providing us with that documented evidence, Mr. Wright, as to, I'm handing it to you about this poor decision that I've made. So I guess that's, again, just a reminder to people as we started off this, the goal is just to do the right thing for the beginning, bring your personal into the workplace itself. What steps do you all take in terms of just providing that general education to those that you come in contact with on a daily basis? And again, they're coming from different factions, faculty, staff, and students. So Joel, what do you do in terms of just infusing that in terms of those that you present or engage with on a daily basis?
Well, we try to, whether it's training sessions that we conduct across campus, so we try to do those, but then, when our office is giving counsel, if there is an issue or somebody reaches out with a concern, one thing that I do consistently is point back to the policy. Okay, well, let's look back and see what the policies say, whether that's our own internal HR employee handbook, whether it's a student code of conduct or the academic affairs handbook, or also kind of the overarching guiding documents would be our Board of Regents policies. So even if I know something or I think I know something, I always like to go back to the foundational document or the foundational policy and kind of build up and read from there. So that's one thing that I always encourage is, okay, well, let's start with thinking about what does the policy say? And does our scenario, is it addressed in these policies? And kind of we'll start there with our decision-making process.
Good. Ola, how do you do it and I know you said as soon as they walk through the door, that onboarding process, you start laying out what is expected in your role, how it has an influence and an impact on what we do in our overarching responsibility of but developing and educating the 6,000 plus students that we face and those that are instrumental in that. You mentioned that day one is when that occurs. How do you then continue that educational process with those key individuals who beyond the day one, if you will?
Right. And so, again, there is an reintroductory of ethics in a new hire orientation, which employees are required to go through as they are onboarding. There are the annual ethics training that we would like to implement. There should be an annual review of just like a refresher. And I will never stop stating this, is leading by example. That is an everyday training that is no cost to anyone. It is just an action that is seen. And also, you know, those, they tend to think of HR just in the office pushing paper. I want to get out. I want to show them we're not just the principal's office where you're going to get in trouble or, you know, we lay down the hammer or something like that. I want to be intentional, getting out, show you that we are a department to help you. Our job is to make sure that this organization is taken care of, and you cannot have an organization without individuals working here. So we want to make sure they are taken care of as well. And so that we are guiding those employees with, you know, just being that assistance that we need. And that brings us back to ethics, because if I'm not following or delivering what I'm telling you I'm going to do, then you're not going to have that trust in me, which is going to affect your view of my department. So I have to be very ethical and intentional of what I say I'm going to do. That is what we're going to do. And that is helping all those who come into this department.
Sure. If you all could both share, and I know you all partner well, work together on, you know, various projects and, picking each other's brains in terms of situations that you may have here just at Albany State University. And we certainly appreciate that work that you do. I personally know that it can be nonstop, and that nonstop is just always wanting to make sure, based upon the directive that we received from our boss, Dr. Fedrick, just to make sure that our processes and systems that we have in place, how effective are they, and are there opportunities for improvement? So I know we do that and think about that probably 24 hours, 7 days a week. But when you all are engaging with peers throughout the USG and even outside of, the post-secondary education scope, can you all share some of the common and unfortunate ethics violations that you were just absolutely blown away that people are still engaging in, and not only impacting their specific roles, jeopardizing that, but just the organization as a whole? Any things that you all often discuss, like, I cannot believe people are still doing that?
Well, I would say one of the, I don't know how common, but one of the issues that we've seen, and I think it's been kind of consistent, is just making sure that you're adhering to all of the kind of the time requirements. That if you're taking off early, you're documenting that. If you're taking a day of vacation, you followed the policy and made that request and gotten an approval and have entered it in to whatever into your time card. And that's one of those things that if you don't, it could easily slip up on you. So even if you're not intentionally doing something that would be a violation of policy, but if you say, oh, well, I'll catch up those days at the end of the month, I'll input them, and then you miss a day. And while that's not a huge, in the grand scheme of things, issue, if you're one employee out of 500 employees, and that's 1 month out of 12, and that's one institution out of 26, you can see how even those little decisions can compound themselves and have a big impact. So, I think that we see some of that. And another one that at least my peers talk about, and we have a system-wide meeting so that we do kind of bounce these situations off of each other, make sure that we're being consistent, like you mentioned earlier, is making sure that we're adhering to the policies that we have in place. If we have a published policy and we're not following what we say we're going to do, that creates a potential liability issue for us. So, there's a process for if we've got a policy in place and it's not working for us anymore, we need to make some adjustments. There's a process in place to do that, and not just kind of one-off situations everywhere that can create some of those issues.
Yeah. And we're very fortunate here because if there's not a specific ASU policy in place, then we can then always default to the university system, the overarching umbrella, and say, okay, well, I know the system has a policy that then we can then refer to, and then we are falling under that guidance, if you will. Good.
Exactly.
Yeah. Ola, your human resource peers, colleagues, fellow chief human resource officers, any common theme that you may have seen throughout your career where, you all discuss, like, I cannot believe people are still doing this?
So, and I can talk about this a little bit as my very short time here at ASU, but it has become a common practice of what I'm not seeing. And what I'm not seeing is that communication to one another. But what I'm seeing is the assumption that, oh, you should know. And so I feel that if we just started with, hey, maybe I didn't like the way this was done, maybe, or the start of a communication with the person that assumingly you have a problem with. That is missing, and that is missing across several sectors, higher education, local government, still all public sector. But just that little piece of having, just a brief conversation with the person, and maybe we wouldn't escalate it to something that it could have been easily resolved if that conversation just would have transpired. So I would like to see if we could just not assuming that it's going to turn into something that you're perceiving, but have that conversation to try to de-escalate the situation before it just grows to something unknown.
Sure.
And so what I am seeing is that the numerous concerns that have been brought to my attention, I think would not have gotten as far as it did if it would have started with a small conversation.
Sure. Yeah, I think that is so, we undervalue the power in just saying something, because you're right. It's the assumption that, oh, you hold this position or you've been with the organization for 10 years that you're supposed to know. And so I'm just going to sit back and not say anything. I can give you a very recent example. It was very innocent on the part where someone was advocating for a really worthy cause and was asking, hey, would you like to support this? But they use the work platform to share that information. And so I just simply, you made a phone call. I was like, you have to be careful. This is a great cause and we are very service oriented. But if it doesn't specifically align with the institution, we have to be mindful about how we utilize that resource. And it was very innocent. I didn't even really think about that. But had I not said anything, it could have snowballed and, again, blossomed into something totally, in an arena that we didn't want to go in. It was really, and as I said, I know it was innocent upon this, for this person is just very civic and service oriented and didn't even give much thought to it. But it is the small things, as we started off with, that can blossom into something that we're like, oh my gosh, how did we end in this space? Yeah. Joel, you look like you want to share something.
That's a great example. And like you said, oftentimes those issues like that are not intended, but we forget that if we send it from our email address or we're saying it in our workplace, that we are the state. We're an entity of the state. And so we have to kind of act accordingly. And so we have to be cognizant that that our words can be perceived as a position that the state of Georgia would take. And so there are those issues that sometimes you would never think about. And so that's, it's great to have that conversation. Or if you've got a question about, wait, can I do this? Or how do I do this? I want to support this organization. Can we support it as an institution? That's when you can pick up your phone and talk to your supervisor or contact my office or HR, wherever. And we have that network of support that we can kind of help walk through those decisions before they end up kind of in my office with a complaint.
Yeah, yeah. I want to say it was, and it was not. Ola was gonna say it was you, but I was having a conversation with our counseling and accessibility director, Ms. Bradley, just yesterday, and we were talking about, our chief, Anita Allen, police chief, her campaign. If you see something, say something. It's also applicable as it relates to the ethics piece. If you see something that's out of order, as Ola just said, hopefully you want to take the opportunity to educate a colleague or educate a student to say, hey, you do know that that's in violation, or you're venturing down that road. But also what we need to consider, Joel, as you just said, if you are unsure, say something, or in this particular case, if you're unsure, you need clarity, or you make that inquiry, reach out to, the offices. And I know what we do very well here at Albany State is, if I don't have the answer, if Joel doesn't have the answer, if Ola doesn't have, whoever it might be, although you may think that they're the subject matter expert, they may be, but they will then make an additional call to say, let me verify, let me affirm that this is in fact the correct information. But just make the ask before the act occurs, and then you find yourself, in a situation that, has had negative impact, not only on the institution, but your position or your role itself. Yeah. I was also reminded I'm a child of, my dad was a retired police officer. And so I also went back to that thought, just, growing up and you hearing, I don't know if I hear this that much more, but ignorance of the law or the policy is no excuse.
No excuse.
Yeah, and particularly nowadays, because, I grew up in that age where we had to go to the library or a textbook or make a phone call, but so much information is readily accessible, through these devices that we have, and we're often tethered to them. So it's making the phone call, it's asking via email, it's, doing research on your own to find out, is this in fact in order? Yeah. Any closing thoughts on, again, I love the concept of Ethics Awareness Week, but it is, that, of course, that's just to heighten attention and help us to, stay focused on the subject. But in fact, it is a daily practice that we engage in, and that helps to support the efficiencies and the operations and just help to yield the success that we're looking for. Any closing remarks on the week itself or ethics awareness? Some words of encouragement or information that you'd like to share with our viewers on maintaining that successful practice?
I will state that I had a previous supervisor, and fortunately, she was a city manager of a very popular city. And there are some tough decisions that we do have to make, but she always made the statement of do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And that has stuck with me since the first time she said it. And that is what ethics is. That is doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
I love it. I love it. I couldn't have said it any better than that. Mr. Wright, you want to wrap us up? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I would just, I think that's great. It's a good life motto that can apply in the workplace and really in every area of our lives. And I would also say that unethical behavior has an impact upstream and downstream. Meaning, if I make an unethical decision or I'm conducting myself in an unethical manner, not only does it have negative impact on my fellow coworkers, or if I'm a supervisor, those that I supervise, but it also has an negative impact on my office. It has a negative impact on whoever I report to. And most importantly, it has a negative impact on the institution as a whole. If we lose credibility because there's unethical behavior, we can lose work productivity. There's just a lot of negative implications that ultimately affect the institution, which is ultimately here to support and educate our student population. So, that potential unethical decision that you might be, tempted to make, if we think about it, it doesn't just impact us. It doesn't just impact this one area. It has an impact on the institution as a whole. And so that's when the question of, I should do right because it's the right thing to do really comes into play.
Indeed. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully our viewers have benefited from it. And so this will be disseminated throughout the community and certainly our internal community. I want to publicly say thank you to both of you all. We sit in a lot of meetings together. I've not said this to you, but I both categorize you both as kind of quiet storms, if you will. You accomplish a great deal in a very powerful manner, but it's always in a very poised, polished, and kind of a reserved demeanor. And so I've learned and continue to learn a lot from you. I have known Ola prior to her starting here at Albany State University and always made that observation and respected her for that. And certainly you, Joel, it continues to be a pleasure to not only work with you both, but to learn from you. And thank you for always demonstrating what it is you all do so well for faculty, staff, and students. So thank you for joining me for this conversation today.
Thank you.
Thank you for the kind words, and say the same about you. So it's been a pleasure, and look forward to having this conversation again.
Absolutely. Know that you're always welcome back on the show, and we will look forward to discussing it at greater detail in the future. Viewers, thank you so much for joining me for this special edition of Realizing Potential. I'm Wendy Wilson, and I look forward to seeing you again.